it's not like he had an affair and she needs to be the bigger person. He is wanted for murder and being a serial killer accomplice. I feel like those are two different levels of vindication. Hi, you guys, and we're back. We are doing our rewatch show where we are taking a K-drama classic, rewatching it 4 episodes in a row, and then deep diving what our thoughts are. And this is Jen from the K3, and I am joined by my K-drama BFFs, Carol, MICHAELA, and CAITLIN. Let's get a quick introduction from each of them, and then we will dive right in on Flower of Evil episodes 5 through 8, the midpoint. I'm so excited. Carol, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. This is Carol, KDramaMusings. I'm super excited to be here for our second installment, and I have thoughts. So let's get into it.
Yes! MICHAELA from the Kpopcast.
Yes, hello, everybody. This is MICHAELA, the PD Nim from the Kpopcast. K-pop podcast, bringing you the best sounds and ideas in K-pop each week, but we also talk about K-dramas, so I'm really excited to get back to talking about this show.
Excellent. And our girl, CAITLIN.
Hello, I'm CAITLIN. I'm the blogger for No Sleep for Dramas. I'm also a frequent guest on the K3 as well as other podcasts and things. And you guys know I have thoughts about this show.
That's the title of this episode. We all have thoughts.
We all have thoughts. I feel like this is going to be the episode where lines are drawn.
Possibly.
I feel like
Possibly, yeah.
All right, so let's waste zero time because clearly we all have many, many thoughts. We're gonna, as we said, we're gonna talk about episodes 5 through 8. So my thought is kind of to chunk them together because so much happens in episodes 5 through 8, in my opinion. We go from our family, our main family being sort of still cohesive, to absolute implosion by the end of episode 8, right? Which of course is a halfway point, so that's how K-dramas usually work. But I thought the progression of it was just amazing. So episode 5 and 6, just a quick synopsis. It basically takes us from Baek Sung's abduction, torture, and rescue all the way to Cha Ji-won learning the truth that he's actually been Do Hyun-soo like for the entire time and needs to try to make sense of it all. So let's just dive in, you guys. Like there was the abduction and then the revelation were just two such huge things. And that was only episode 5 and 6. What were you guys' thoughts?
Okay. First of all, I want to start with empathy. So I felt for Cha Ji-won character because her life just blew up in her face. I felt her confusion when she saw her husband's watch there, and now she's questioning everything in her mind and where she saw him, when she knew him, what was odd about seeing him the first time and interacting with him. And I was just like, okay, I'm feeling for you, but you're also very annoying at the same time.
Okay, I think this is going to be Jen against the world on the Cha Ji-won front. I
just could not. MICHAELA, you're nodding your head. Step in. Go ahead.
Again, 100%. Let me preface everything I'm going to say this episode with. Episode 5 through 8 is my favorite episodes of the whole show. Let me just put that down. Like, it is my favorite episode of the whole show. However, Cha Ji-won is so frustrating these entire 4 episodes as a character. Like every decision she's making just gets, like the first watch, I was just not on her team the entire time.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I already know the answer to this question. CAITLIN, your thoughts on Cha Ji-won episodes 5 through 8?
Yeah, I was not a fan of her in these episodes. Even on the rewatch, I was not a fan of her on these episodes either. So, yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to be the defender of our girl Cha Ji-won. Because last week we were supposed to record and we had some technical difficulties, and so we had kind of chatted a little bit. And you had mentioned, MICHAELA and CAITLIN had both mentioned that this thing about being so annoyed and like not like actively disliking Cha Ji-won in these 2 episodes. And so I thought on it for a week, and then I rewatched episode 8, and so I kind of like here's what this is what I like. I agree. She had some moments where I was like, girl, what are you doing? Like, that is a bit much. The gun moment in the house, which she goes to pull a gun on him with the recording, like that seemed a little bit over the top. But what I realized, and this is why I will staunchly defend her to the end, is kind of what Carol said, where I have a lot of empathy for her. She went from having the picture perfect life of everything she's ever wanted with the man who adores her and all of these things, to not only does her life implode like in the most chaotic way ever, with her husband being abducted by the guys that they're chasing, has nothing to do with this case, theoretically, to just complete implosion. What I think is happening is that because we already know Do Hyun Soo's background, and we know we're already connected to him and his story, and that we're already feeling empathetic towards him. And so Cha Ji-won, who as a cop just found out that her husband is a suspect in a 18-year-old like cold case murder, and she's been married to him, and she's a cop. And so I gave her a little bit of grace of being a little bit off the rails with going from swinging wildly from moment to moment. So that's where I land with Cha Ji-won. Poor girl.
And that
the
is
whole
the
world
biggest
is just
problem.
Imploded.
Is as a cop is like the subtext behind all the problems and all the issues that I have with everything that she does in this episode, because she never approaches the situation as Do Hyun Soo's partner. She is always a cop first. She is in pursuit of justice. Yes. Forget any kind of sympathy or emotions that, or treating Do Hyun Soo as like a person. He is a suspect, and suspects are bad people, and I must treat them first as a bad person. And disregarding the fact that we've been married for how many years, we have a child, like all of this past history that she has with him. She is like in the first episode, she's like, okay, there's like a little bit of a crack there where she like lies about the watch. Okay. But after that, she is back on treating him like a suspect the whole time. And it's just so frustrating. Because
it was confusing to me. Yeah. It was confusing to me because she is the one who pursued him all these, like back in the day, all those years ago. She's the one who seems to love him more. And yet when this thing happened, she seemed to like forget all that and then start tracking him, doing that. I'm just like, sis, you're doing too much.
See, now that part I kind of get even more than the cop part, because she did pursue him and she did love him more and all of these things. And then to have all of it revealed that her cop tingly spidey sense not only sucks, she's got a bad picker. Like she just got informed on two fronts that she has zero judging character. And I feel like the girl is just melting down at the point we're seeing her in episodes 5 through 8.
I didn't understand her switch. Like it didn't feel complete to me because I'm not seeing her. I'm not seeing her in love with her husband. All of a sudden, it's just gone off. And that to me feels more like, oh, you know how Do Hyun Soo's character can't really feel, and he's learning, and he looks at other people's faces to study them, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like she's the one who is able to switch it off and just be. So I didn't believe her completely.
All right. I'm kind of going with the Ted Bundy. I'm going with the Ted Bundy case here. If you found out that you've been sleeping with Ted Bundy for the last 15 years, even though you were in love with them, and all of a sudden everyone's like, you're married to Ted Bundy and had a kid with him, and you're a cop. Like, I
just quit your job.
That's exactly. Like, that's kind of where I feel like she's at in an emotional state. That's how I feel. And that's why I gave her a little bit of a wide berth in these episodes. Oh, Caitlin's like thinking hard.
Well, I mean, okay, I kind of agree with Jen, but I also don't agree, because even as a cop, like cops in general can become like very cynical and like think everybody's a suspect. But at the same time, you'd like to think that the cop has some empathy and tries to understand like somebody. So, and then you add on the fact that you've been married to the guy for 18 something years. I also did not like her in these 4 episodes whatsoever. Like essentially because I think we view him as at least in this time period, like this episode 8 to the beginning, we view him as a victim. Like he's really a victim. And so I could never get behind her having the switch. And then, especially when they're in the house, I was mad when she did that in the house in the basement. The first watch and the second watch. Because I'm just like, dude, it's clearly he is something happened down here with him. And this is victim response. Like you are a cop and you are not seeing victim response here. And that aggravated me a lot because it wasn't him freaking out because she was about to find out that he had killed somebody. It was a victim trauma response that he was having in that basement. And the fact that she couldn't see that.
She said in the car, maybe I pushed him too far.
Yeah.
She knew. She saw it.
But I mean, like, you think, like, when she saw that response, you think, like, okay, maybe he, like, granted, I will say, at the end of episode 6, when he was, like, when she was not believing the rumors and not believing the online gossip and saying, I'm going to find out, I'm going to find facts, and whether they say if my husband's the person they're looking for or he's not, like, I did like that part. Like, you don't treat like somebody with that response in the basement. You don't do that. Like, you don't. Like, that's just not that's not what you do.
All right. I will be the lone Chaji-won supporter of these episodes.
Well, before that, I will maybe in the rewatch though. I did understand her reactions a little bit more. I do have to mention that, like, again, because this specific watch through, I'm more focusing on her character than Do Hyun Soo's. Like, from that perspective of her life imploding, her not trusting, her feeling hurt, her feeling angry, like an angry response to a partner lying to you, like, makes a little bit more sense why she would want to hurt him in that way. Even doesn't make it right, but her wanting to hurt him, bring back this past trauma, destroy this precious memory, that maybe the only memory that he has of his mother, like all these other little, again.
Does she know that it's mother at that point? I think at that point she thinks it's one of the victims.
Possibly, yeah.
That's how I saw that.
There is a tie to that object being something that's important to him, is what I'm saying. Like, she completely destroys the person that he actually is in order to, like, again, live this lie that she's gonna continue on being like, okay, you want to be Becky Sung? You're gonna be Becky Sung the whole time.
Yeah. I also think it speaks to her character too, like the fact that she did go that far. It's like a person's response to somebody doing something to you speaks more to your own character than how you might react in a situation. So the fact that she went that far because she found out her husband lied to her their entire marriage, that doesn't, I mean, in my mind, that makes her the worst person. Because it's her response to being lied to, and I'm like, seriously, like, you could have been the bigger person in this relationship.
I do agree with Caitlin that I think that she was she is the worse or worser character in behaving like that, because she's not even coming from a point of curiosity to understand, you really hurt my feelings. What's going on? Talk to me. And I understand we can be angry, but my thing is, be angry, but don't be vindictive. And that's my That's my main thing with her. Taking him to the basement, I feel was vindictive.
Yes, and every single one of you. But
Yeah.
I will then, and my and will be, it's not like he had an affair and she needs to be the bigger person. He is wanted for murder and being a serial killer accomplice. I feel like those are two different, those are two different levels of vindication that's how I felt anyway, even on the rewatch. Like, do I question some of her ways of handling it? Yeah. I mean, you're kind of putting yourself in danger if he actually is a murderer and a serial killer accomplice. Like, you've put yourself in the basement of his lair. Like, that's probably not the best place to go. But yes. And I think unfortunately, and as I was watching it, and I knew that at least MICHAELA and KAITLIN had these thoughts. I didn't realize Carol also had these thoughts. So, but as I was rewatching it, I also realized that I think we as an audience there's a disservice to how much we love Do Hyun-soo by the time this starts to happen. That I think Cha Ji-won gets piled on with her reaction to it, because you're like, how dare you? He's, all these things that we just said, because I agree with you 110% in the grand scheme of things. And I think as we move through the story, Cha Ji-won even gets to that point herself of understanding. But these episodes is really where I think she just is a little bit off the rails. All right, you guys, let's talk about what we actually liked in these episodes. So 5 and 6, probably I had two things that I thought were my favorites. One, I think my favorite flashback happens in episode 5, the top of episode 5 in the corner store. That corner store flashback is probably my favorite flashback because I think more than any other flashback helps me understand the attraction to him from her side, as well as him having, without even realizing it, a personality that does actually have some empathy for people, or at least looks out for people. What did you guys think?
Yeah, exactly. Like, one of the reasons why I think episode 5 made me, because it begins and ends with this flashback. It has, like, for part 1 in the beginning and part 2 near the end, of like him at the store, and then them, like, when she's drunk, like spilling her guts to him, being like, why can't you see how much you love me? Or like, why won't you let me love you? And it was, again, on the first watch, very frustrating, because it kind of feels like she's just being a pick me. Like, he literally tells her at this point everything that he thinks is bad about him. He's like, oh, I never finished high school. I love violence. Like, I see dead people, like all of these things that are negative about him. And she's still like, but I can teach you, like, I can change you. But again, on the second rewatch, though, because again, looking at this more of this flashback, specifically at the store, where he's like, actually, no, it's not that she's like, I can change him. It's that, no, I actually do see the parts of yourself that you don't even realize you see. Like, you're just trying to scare me away with all these things that are like stereotypically what people would be unattractive to in a partner. But you're still the guy that'll stand in the snow and make sure I get home safe. You're still the guy that'll walk me home when I'm like wasted and like belligerent. Like, I still see the person that you really are is this good person.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of how I felt, especially on the rewatch. Because I kind of the same thing. I was kind of like, the first time I watched it, I'm like, this relationship makes no sense to me. Like, I understand the corner store, but okay, all right, well, I mean, that's the story. I'll just go for the ride. But the second time watching it, I noticed those same things where he's like, sweetie, like, this is a bad idea. And she's like, I see you better than you see you. And I thought that was, I think, again, the progression of where we end up with him. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, for me, my favorite part in episode 5 was when she jumps into the pool. That whole sequence was fantastic. You could see and feel the desperation to get him out of the water. And the more significant moments for me was when she kisses him under the cherry blossoms and he sees his dad on the far off end. And in that moment, I'm seeing it like, okay, he's accepting her because when he accepts her, he'll stop seeing his dad. That whole send off to his dad, I thought it was beautiful and very meaningful.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that moment too, and not just from my watching it. Like there was that moment where she kisses him, and I'm like, "This is the worst kiss ever." And then he sees his dad. Yeah, I was like, "Oh, come on, really, show?" And then I remembered that the reason that it's like that is because he's like going like, "Bye-bye, Dad." Like, oh, he's sleeping. Oh, good. And then as soon as Dad's gone, he's like, "I'm in." And I was like, I thought that was really, I mean, satisfying from just a watcher point of view, but also very telling story wise that's he now needs to keep this because this is that keeps Dad away, which I thought was great.
Episode 5 is one of my favorites, but not for the flashbacks.
Okay.
It's for the whole like pool rescue thing scene. Like as I said in the first episode, that's one of my favorite scenes in the entire drama. So
what makes it your favorite scene in the whole drama?
Well, I mean, I'm a sucker in terms of crime shows. I'm a sucker for like when the cop has a family member or a loved one get kidnapped and they have to go through the whole rescue thing and everything. So I always like that about crime shows when that happens.
When it gets personal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this one has a unique twist to it, obviously, with him being the suspect as well. And then you add on the added tension of the older cop getting hurt and the younger cop fighting in the other room too. So I always am a fan of those types of scenes in crime dramas in general. So that's why episode 5 is one of my favorites. I did write a little funny note though that I don't know if I recognized in the first watch, but one of my notes for episode 5 is, why did she take the time to untie the legs before CPR?
Oh, why? In the same vein with that, I wrote down, why did the guy take off his shoes and socks to tie him up? Like, why? Like, what? Why did they tie? Why does he have bare feet in this pool? I don't understand.
Yeah. Also, that water looked really cold.
So cold.
Really cold.
Like, just from an acting standpoint, I was worried for Lee Joon Gi like the entire time. I was like on edge. I'm like, get that man out of there. Like, I'm afraid he's going to get hypothermia just shooting this scene. Like,
he said,
my God.
In the IG live, he was in the water for like 3 days. Like it wasn't just a day like in this cold water. It was 3 days.
And I also remembered on my first watch, I even thought of this because like it is very well known, even to episode 5, to us at least, not like his wife or anything, but to us, he knows martial arts, like to some extent. So I remember thinking on my first watch as well as my second watch, like, why was it so easy for this taxi driver to take him down? Because he knows martial arts. Granted, I realized like he was being drugged at the same time, but like that was like my whole thought process both times I watched this. I was like, that seemed very easy.
Yes and no, like exactly. It's in the script, Caitlin. Like because the director said so. Even Lee Joon Gi is like, dude, really? Seriously? This guy?
Shout out to Yoon Byung-hee though. He's one of my favorite character actors.
He's spectacular. He is really good. Okay, so episode 5 and 6, we get abducted, we get tortured, we get rescued. 6 is where he's in the hospital. And this is where I think the show's imploded, right? Why is he there? I think that was one of my favorite things from episode 5 is everybody on her team is like, what? Why is your husband a part of this? Like, what is going on? Like, I just appreciate the level of what the fuckness that was occurring with everybody, of him being part of what's happening. And so in episode 6, it's like, how is he going to explain this? And what I noticed this time around, and when I watched it originally, I thought it was just Cha Ji-won being upset, right? Obviously, knowing that she has to get some answers from her husband, just being upset that he was near death. But this time around watching it, the level of on edge that Cha Ji-won is at all times, you knew something was coming. And I thought it was just so, I just thought it was the reveal, I still remember the reveal the first time I was like, oh, I loved it. What did you guys think?
When he said, or when he confessed while he was sleeping, that he had seen his sister and he mentioned his name, my heart dropped. My heart dropped because she was witnessing, that's the moment her world really took on another level of implosion. And so I felt just as shocked as she was, but I also felt like, okay, I have so many questions, but I can't ask you anything because we haven't had a moment, or rather, are you the suspect? Are you the killer that we've been looking for? Like there's just so much going on with her. And I guess I feel for her, but at the same time, just speak. Lack of communication.
Well, I mean, Carol, lack of communication is the cornerstone of every K-drama we have.
That's what I was just going to say. If anything in life, I've learned that communicates because of K-dramas, because it's ridiculous at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I also, again, going back to what I've mentioned, what's really striking me as we move through this every 4 episodes is the mirroring again. Like, again, he's in the hospital, but this time he reveals a big truth about who he is. The second time at the end, he goes back to that. Like, I love the mirroring that's occurring.
Most of my thoughts when it comes to episode 6 are more about, like, yes, he's revealing that he's Do Hyun-soo, but he's also proving that he's not the evil Do Hyun-soo that everybody thinks he is. One, because still by the end of this episode, he is not a murderer, because the older Chaebol guy is like, hey, kill this dude and you'll be free. And he still doesn't kill him. And one, I wonder if there's like a commentary about like the fact that all the older men in his life like push him to murder people. But again, at the end of the day, like, yes, he's Do Hyun-soo, but he's still not the evil Do Hyun-soo that people are saying that he is. Even though Cha Ji-won doesn't really know this. But we know this now.
She does. We know this. This. I was actually, that's one of my things, is I thought that was his best scene in the entire episode. Like, I thought the episode belonged to Moon Chae-won. The whole thing with her just kind of working through the fact that she found out her husband is a murder suspect and a possible serial killer. And then just that mental, just the breakdown that occurred. But that I felt like that final scene when he was in that hospital room with the taxi driver guy. And when he asks him, how did you feel when you found out your wife was dead? Like, that was such an amazing scene. I loved that scene. That was probably my in the whole episode. I think the reveal and then that were my 2 favorite moments.
I actually had forgotten that he dropped this huge secret this early. I'd forgotten that she found out in episode 6. I assumed it was like episode 8 or whatever. So I was like, oh yeah, that's right. But I agree with Carol. I was like, you could have just asked him. Like, maybe he wouldn't have given you an answer, but you could have just asked. Like, communicate here. So I did, I had that same reaction. I also, I don't know how I felt in the first watch of this because I don't remember. I did not remember it happening. But in the second, in episode 6 with the amnesia joke, I'm like, foreshadowing.
Right. Oh my God, I wrote that down too. Right? Oh yeah, that was great.
So I still think that was a bad choice in character for him because his poor daughter. But like, I like now that knowing what's going to happen, and by the end of the show, I'm like, foreshadowing, huh? Okay.
Rewatching this, the foreshadowing in almost every episode is just like, wow. Yeah. They pretty much gave us the whole show in the first 4 episodes. Like, amazing.
Yeah, and then like episode 6 was really the first inkling of like how sinister his adopted father was going to be and like is, because up until then, like, we obviously knew he was not a good person, but this was the first sign that you are not a good person at all. And then at the end of episode 6, as I said earlier, I love the fact that Moo Chae-won's character was like, I need to know the facts. I need to investigate this. I'm not going to listen to these rumors or what everybody else is saying. If he ends up being the killer, fine. But like, I'm not going to sway due to things that are being said. So I liked that about her character.
Yay! Yay, Cha Ji-won.
Can we give another moment to his adoptive mom and her meltdowns? She's always on the precipice of a meltdown. And I'm like, sis, just leave this man. Just leave this man. Exactly. He's not the man for you.
Yeah, like, why? I mean, we all know why she doesn't leave him, but still.
I know I mentioned it in last time we talked about episode 1 through 4, and then she just has the most tragic arc, in my opinion, of everybody in this show. And every episode just reinforces that for me. I'm like, you're a horrible person, but I feel like this is just a culmination of numerous bad choices compounding over years and years and years. Like, it's just that argument that they had, the adoptive parents had at the house, and we still don't even know the full breadth and scope of what they did, even at this time, and you're still like, he is trash. Go. Yeah, there's just so much there, right?
I think the other thing, like, even more sinister about his character is not only like him asking Go Hyun-soo to like go and kill the taxi driver, but like, and again, I don't remember if I saw this on the first watch, but I was like, why don't you do that yourself? Like,
well, I think Do Hyun-soo even asks him that. He's like, oh, I'm doing it? Oh, all right. Sure.
Yeah. So the fact that he not only thought of that himself, but also would make somebody else do it, again, yeah, shows how bad of a person he actually is.
He's the worst. All right. So that's 5 and 6.
And now for some quick K3 Kdrama Coffee Break business.
That's right. We love sharing our K-drama thoughts with you, our community of K-drama lovers. And we have a few ways that you can support us. You can buy us a coffee at ko-fi.com/the-K3. And by becoming a member, you will get a calendar with weekly updates and also Jenn's blog filled with her K-drama thoughts. You can also find us on YouTube. If you go into our archive, we have years of K-dramas to recommend for you. And talk to us there as well on our community tab. We also have a discount for a VPN service. So if you are dying to get your K-dramas that are airing only on Disney Plus in Asia, you can use our VPN. It keeps your devices safe. Just look for the code in the description below.
Well, let's just segue right into that. 7 and 8, basically, so much happens, right? We basically, trust is a huge theme. Nobody trusts anybody. Trust is like out the door everywhere. And basically, people's worlds are just imploding, right? And by the end of it, we have one world falling apart and another one rising from the ashes, right? It's the end of episode 8 was a reveal I did not see coming. Even the man with the luscious hair lying unconscious in a bed. Did any of us see that coming?
Nope.
Whew. Crazy. All right, Carol, go. Crazy fake mom.
Crazy fake mom. She's still having meltdowns, but you're seeing some humanity with her because she's warming up to the fake granddaughter while she's taking care of her. And it made me feel like this woman is on edge because of her husband and how horrible he is. He's the one controlling how she reacts and how she should behave. And it's going against everything she believes in, but she feels trapped because of the situation the men in her life are in. And so I feel so bad for her, but I loved the scene and how she took care of the granddaughter and sort of inching closer and closer to liking her and to having her around. That was very cute. My second thing was the reporter and the way he's like, oh, I'll find your sister, but I already have her number.
Yeah. I love he's like, I got skills. Like, dude.
Yeah, dude, come on. But let's pause for a moment. I'd love to hear what y'all think too.
My thoughts on 7 and 8 mostly revolve around the bed scene, but in the beginning. So I'll let Caitlin go if you have anything on that.
I mean, most of my stuff has to do with MICHAELA. So, but I did like the kid and the fake mom scenes. I liked, like, it was interesting to see, as Carol pointed out, like, I don't think she realized she was sort of starting to want to protect the kid. Because like when her husband came around, just the way she was standing between her husband and the kid at all times, or as much as possible, was a conscious decision. on her character, even if she unconsciously was doing it, kind of like shielding her, because she not only was shielding her from the husband, but also from the room behind him as well, which I found very interesting. And so I liked that scene too, because it kind of showed, as like Carol said, like a little bit of humanity, but also a little bit of like maternal instinct that we didn't see prior to that scene, really, except maybe in the pharmacy. But really, we didn't see much maternal instinct, even though Lee Joon Gi's character is not her actual son. So it was interesting to see, and kind of created a more rounder character, like not one note character than she had been betrayed before that.
I will say the scene with the granddaughter confused me a little bit because she so actively hated her at the beginning, episode 1, and the granddaughter was terrified of her, that all of a sudden we're having egg tarts and pancakes, which was great. I thought it was great, but I thought it was it was a little bit jarring for me because I was surprised at how loving the granddaughter was. But I understood that it got us from point A to point B. So when I rewatched it, it wasn't as jarring this time. But what I loved about these episodes for our fake mom is that, and as we learn later, I love that this is a woman who theoretically has made the right decisions when it comes to her son. As far as, you know, it's her son, she's always going to love him because that's what parents do, but that she made the proper choices about him and who he became numerous times. And we even see that at the end of episode 8, where she basically unplugs him from the life support, right? She's like, we can't do this. After the huge fight with the fake dad and their husband, and how he just basically she says to us, we're keeping him alive for you, not for him or for me. Like this is all for you. And so by the end of episode 8, when we get to that halfway turn, she's like, I'm done. And I loved that so much. And I mean, obviously, it gives us one of my favorite villains in all of K-drama. But I felt so bad for her when he woke up. I was like, "Oh, you poor bastard! You keep trying to get rid of this kid, and he just won't die."
I think I also liked about her character, especially in episode 8, was the little thing she was doing throughout the episode was kind of her rebelling against her husband, like protecting the kid, bringing the kid home, making her dinner, buying her an egg tart, like kind of like testing the waters to see what she could do, and then maybe like in the future could be able to do, and then trying to get her son off life support, which was not his decision, obviously, like the husband's decision whatsoever. So I did like that part of the episode too, where it was like her kind of rebelling and trying to at least have some choice in her life. And Jen, yes, I did have that same feeling of like, oh God, now she has to deal with 2 of them. Oh my God.
Oh God, where is this show going?
But he had to wake up, because, you know, we, especially on this rewatch, we know they're coming to this conclusion that there's an accomplice. There's another person that we have no idea who's involved with the story.
Who could it be?
Who? But my only other thoughts about episode 7 and 8, specifically 8, I believe, is like finally getting to see the siblings come together. Like that was one of like my favorite scenes of the whole show. One, just because it's like, again, in this, if you're watching the video, I have the background or the location, which is like this abandoned ski resort pool that they film everything in. The sister is very important in the scene because, one, it's so cool to see them reconnect, but 2, she informs Do Hyun-soo of all the things that we have already kind of seeing, like that he's changed, like he's not this evil person that he still thinks that he is, especially when he's like showing all these pictures of Baekun Ha and like telling her about his wife. Like she's seeing all the things again that he is unable to recognize about himself. And at the end, she has that big question of like, do you love her? And he of course says no, which is unfortunate because we know Moo Chae-won is like hiding in the shadows behind her, and she hears this, and it's like, it's so tragic.
You remember the first time you saw that, the first watch? I was like, oh God, that hurts so much. That was it was a visceral moment for me the first time I watched it.
And then that's again the second, my favorite needle drop of the whole episode, of the whole series, because she goes off and like walks slowly, sadly, and then you have like the Olive Young version of the Weekend song in the background, and she's just staring at her reflection like, what is my life, or whatever. But again, those scenes again are, one, getting these characters to again communicate, interact with each other, and also again the big reveal of like him still not being completely understanding of the fact that he's not an evil person, but unfortunately it's to the detriment of his relationship with his wife.
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally said the moment when when the Scooby Gang is all together, which is essentially the brother and sister and then our reporter, and they're all talking, and she tells him to sit down and be like, use your words, buddy. What is really happening right now? I thought that was one of my favorite scenes in the show for sure.
Yeah, I really loved hearing the sister share that he has changed, because I think he has a narrative in his mind that he is a bad person and not that he does bad things or things that are not, let me say, neurotypical or not socially typical. And so he sees himself as a bad person, but she has seen the change in him and she's reflecting that messaging back to him. And what I loved especially was when the gang was together and they were working together, and Do Hyun-soo sees the reporter is still trying to flirt with his sister and he loses it on him. And the sister like brings him back, like MICHAELA said, or you said, use your words, like speak up. What do we need? And you have to acknowledge that this person is here as a friend and is supporting us. So yes, I see the change, but that doesn't mean you've completely let go of your old self. There's still some things, but it's not bad. It's just you need that messaging reflected to you to say, hey, instead of seeing it this way, see it that way. So I just love their relationship.
Yeah, I loved it. I also love the just the scene in general, when even Do Hyun-soo even was like, I thought I understood. I thought I'd analyzed humans enough to recognize what makes them angry. And sometimes I just get confused because that's just not part of my bandwidth. Like, I don't get it. And I thought that was such an amazing insight into just the character in general, that he basically is, and especially as if I were to jump to the finale, he's just spent his whole life observing and trying to walk the path that everyone keeps telling him he needs to not get in trouble, for lack of a better description. And so he's been analyzing people and never being himself. And so that I loved that moment where he was like, I've been trying and trying and trying, and sometimes I just lose the thread. And I thought that was just a great moment.
Also, shout out to his self-awareness for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for a man who doesn't recognize human emotions, like, he's fairly self-aware.
Yeah.
I appreciated that scene a lot. I will say the other thing that I really absolutely when I rewatched 8, the thing that I loved, again, going back to the ending, going back to like the mirroring idea. I thought it was the editing of the end of episode 8 was just so, for me, like just that moment where you're just like, this is why I love this show. You've got Do Hyun-soo having a panic attack and can't breathe because his wife's at Moojin's door, and we're intercutting that with our Baek Sung, the original, who can't breathe because he's coming back to life. And the intercutting of the two, of both of them essentially coming back to life as who they originally were, was just, and loved it so much. It's one of my favorite moments in the whole show, as far as just the way, the mirroring and the intercutting and the ability of Baek Sung being, Baek Sung should have been essentially what I'm saying is Baek Sung should have been Do Hyun-soo. Should have been born Do Hyun-soo. Do Hyun-soo should have been born Baek Sung, is what I feel like the show is constantly showing us. And I thought that moment of intercutting between the two really, this time watching it, really brought that to the forefront for me. as to what these two characters are and how interlinked they truly are.
I'd love to hear what your favorite moments in 7 and 8 were, though.
Oh, mine. The ending was probably my absolute favorite moment. And then I had to say the scene again. I have to agree with everybody here. The scene with the brother and sister was so. I think it's really when I realized how well Lee Joon Gi was playing this role and how different from other roles I've seen him in. Because usually in a scene like this, she's crying, he's crying, there's tears, people are emotional. Like it just becomes this overwrought reunion scene. And he basically asks her, so how have you been? And she's like, are you fucking kidding me? How have I been? You haven't seen me in 18 years. And I thought that for me just really solidified the fact that he understood this character really well. And I loved it so much because you do have this very emotional sister and this very non-emotional brother that clearly have looked out for each other for their whole lifetimes, right? And so I feel like if he had been a serial killer accomplice, Big Sis was not going to be along for the ride on that. And so I thought it was just a great scene to give us more information without, again, beating us over the head with the exposition fairy.
Yeah, I agree with you. My favorite scene, honestly, is the reporter. I feel like he comes in as our comedic relief in the very high stress moments, and him being in love with Hisu and randomly saying, "You're so pretty." that was hilarious to me and so cute. He's such an endearing character. I love how he has moved from, I said it last week, from his fear to a moment of, okay, I don't need to fear him. I may not understand him completely, but he's not a bad guy. So I want to be there for my friend, and I like his sister. So.
Right. Yeah. That moment when he said, "You're so pretty," and like, just from an acting standpoint, like Lee Joon Gi's response to that, just as a character, like, wait, what did she say? Like, what? Like, it was just so natural.
I remember on the first watch when we did get that pool scene with the sister and him, I remember thinking, and I don't know if I had the same thought on my rewatch, but I remember in my first watch was like, because how they're sitting at the pool and how Moo Chae-won is looking, it's unclear, I think, that she can see who he's talking to. So I remember on the first watch, it was like, oh my God, she thinks he's having an affair now. And I remember, and I still was mad about this, of like her walking away and not staying and seeing the entire, or hearing the entire conversation. I still got mad about that because I'm just like, this is ridiculous. I do like the ending of 8 where I thought it was like, it took a lot of gumption for Lee Joon Gi to like walk to the front door when Moo Chae-won was standing there. I remember on my first watch, I did not think he was going to do that at all. I thought he was going to pull another jump out the window and sit on the windowsill type thing. But the fact that he just walked up and was like, "Hey, where's the pizza?" So, and I don't remember what her response to that was. So I'll be curious to see in episode 9 what that response is, because I don't remember what that was. Even though I absolutely hated Moo Chae-won in the scene, I do like the basement scene because I think the acting is very good. I don't like Moo Chae-won's character in that scene at all.
Shut up, Caitlin. I had no idea.
But I do like the scene just because there's the tension and there's like, it adds tension for the audience as well. And then, as I just said, the acting is very good. So
as I'm looking at my notes, as we're wrapping this up, just kind of some final thoughts. What I thought was really interesting, episode 8, it's this idea of like, we have these different family units, right? You've got the police station family unit. You've got the Baek Song family unit. You've got the Do Hyun Soo family unit, right? And so you've got these two families and how they are different. They're together, but they're not, right? And so I found it really interesting that the show is kind of showing you that the facade can be a myriad of things, whether it's the Scooby Gang doing their investigation and getting a piece of information versus the actual cops getting this piece of information, and like, I found it really interesting that the show is basically, as we get closer to that finale, which I keep talking about because I love it so much, it's like about being your true self. and how all of these different pieces are constantly hiding behind these facades that we've set up, and how probably the two most truthful family in this whole scenario are the brother and sister. And I thought that was really interesting. Like, they're the only two who know everything, really. And Mujin. Like, this pod is the only three that know everything that's happening right now. And I thought it was an interesting way to set up the back half of us moving into the rest of the story.
Yeah. But then the addition to that one, that I think the another family unit that's really important is the family unit of the wife, the little boy, and then the cheating husband. That's one of the major, like, you know, back to the crime stuff cases where she runs into this little boy who's now like running with this like criminal ring, and he straight up says like, I wish I hadn't exposed this lie, like it ruined my life. Whereas now Moo Chae-won's character has this lie that she is at this point trying to expose, and here's the universe being like, hey, maybe it's a bad idea.
Abort, don't do it. Yeah, exactly. I think it's been an interesting watching it just from a writing standpoint, like how well and interwoven each of these moments has been throughout the thing.
I agree with MICHAELA. I think that I did love the reflection of the little boy to her, sort of as a little reminder in the back of your mind, saying, hey, you don't have to blow this up. Give it some time. Really understand all aspects of the story before you make a decision to blow it up. Because right now she's playing, I want to get all the answers, but at the same time, only I want to get all the answers. So don't tell the other cops, talk to me. And yes, I want to bring it to light, but I'm also not sure if I want to bring it to light. So I see that reflected in her actions. Her showing up at that reporter's house, I was like, wow, girl, really? You got some balls on you. I feel you.
My favorite part in that one is when she realizes she has to give Do Hyun-soo this information and she gets up to leave. Her cop buddy was like, she just decided where she was going after she got up, didn't she? I was like even her partners are like, what is happening? What is she doing?
Yeah. They're not understanding her motivations. And I think it's actually the younger cop who's starting to figure out there's something off with Moon Chae-won's character. Something's not adding up, and I'm sort of catching her in lies, but is that a lie, or should I just keep watching? So I think that guy is someone to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we have finished. We're at the halfway point, y'all. We've got Baek Hee-sung, the original, is back in the land of the living. I will admit, the first time I saw this, because Kim Ji-hoon never blinked, I'm like, is he dead? Like, I'm very confused. What's happening right now? Because he just laid there. I was like, could he? Oh, wait, he's alive. Yeah. So it took me a beat. I'm not going to lie. About it. But yeah, so he's back in the land of the living. Do Hyun-soo is just spiraling out of control. And we are now headed into the back half to find out what's about to happen. As we wrap up, are there any things that, based on this first half, that you're really looking forward to seeing what happens and as we move into episodes 9 through 12?
I'm just excited for Kim Ji-hoon's character, because again, we all know this is the reason why I'm watching this drama in general.
But I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you say that these 4 episodes were also your favorite 4 episodes?
I want to say it was. I mean, we all know how I feel about the endings, so that's definitely, those last 2 episodes are not my favorite. So I'm assuming 9 through 9, like these next 4 are my favorite. Yes,
that's hilarious. I feel like we could have an entire podcast just about the ending, and maybe we will. Because I am going to battle for that ending. I am going to die on that hill. All right, you guys, any final thoughts on 5 through 8 that we didn't touch on? Your favorite things? We all know Cha Ji-won needs to up her game for the 3 of you. Me, I'm like, poor girl, just I hope she finds happiness at the end of this.
Just little thing. I love seeing all the flashbacks of them and like Lee Joon gi and little baby Baek and like anytime he's like being a dad. Like, I'm excited. That's what I'm excited for in the next few episodes, because I know we get more of those, like him being a father in those flashbacks of the next episodes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you know what, MICHAELA, we did not mention your visceral reaction to the top of the scene when they were being husband and wife in ye old makeout session.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
I feel like we should have that conversation.
very, very quickly, so that we're not getting too much into this. But again, the fact that when they come home from the hospital, they have sex, like the fact that they're like an actual married couple, and then also the way that the show portrays this scene, where it's like. Lee Joon Gi had mentioned this, that when it came to how they wanted to do it, they wanted to make it realistic of like a true like love scene between like a husband and wife, but also not lean too far into the eroticism of it all, because during this scene you have to see clearly that Cha Ji-won's character is having these very conflicting feelings, because she's like, I don't know this person, but at the same time she's like giving herself back to this person, like physically and emotionally.
Interesting. That is not how I saw that scene, but that's interesting. Okay.
I saw it as a way of communicating that they're still together. There's still some intimacy there, and we're still a unit, even though our world is falling apart. So it was kind of like, wait, you just got out of the hospital and you're busy. It's the same way you would say, some people say, oh, I just had a baby. 6 months later, I'm pregnant again. Because sometimes you just want that intimacy that, oh, we're still together. We are still good. And the way we find out we're good is cooking for you, sleeping together, doing the normal things. So that's how I interpreted that.
It's so interesting, because I'm the one who's like, oh yeah, she totally was playing him the whole time. Like this was a total setup. She just did not want to reveal that she knew anything. That's so interesting. I'm like, and I'm not anti, but I'm like, Cha Ji-won was like totally going cop mode in this one. And you guys are like, nope, she's reconnecting. I'm so fascinated by this.
I agree with Jen on this. I was like, yeah, she does not want to be I mean, to an extent she does, but like she does not want to be doing this right now, but she's doing it because she doesn't want to like have him know anything at this point. So I'm with Jen on this statement. So
I mean, I feel like going back to what MICHAELA and Carol said also, I mean, yes, I think she misses that connection because they had that connection. And I think she's mourning that connection because she's the one severing it at this point. But I felt like I felt like there was a lot of conflict in that scene for her, because on one hand, I think she wants to just forget all of it and like just move on, but she can't because, you know, again, serial killer, murder suspect. But yeah, that's very interesting. I love talking with you guys about this stuff. It's so much fun to see different aspects of it. I always go back and watch and go, interesting. That is fascinating. I did not see that when I watched it.
I just want to say one more thing too, because I remembered when we were talking about something else. But like, I think the other reason why I was so annoyed with Moo Chae-won's character during this is she was waffling the entire time. Like, she had that scene where they got intimate, where to me, I interpret it as like she was just going through the motions type thing. And then they had the whole interview in the hospital scene where she had to leave because she was like, this is not appropriate. But then you take her to the basement and she's like all cop mode, and then to a point of like, you should have stopped this a long time ago. I think that is one of the reasons why I was really annoyed with her character, is because I was like, choose a side. If you are going to be a cop the entire time. If you are not going to be a cop and you're going to care about your husband, choose that side. Like, pick a side. I think that was one of the main reasons why I was also very annoyed, other than the fact that she didn't respond to the victim stuff that happened in the basement, was the fact that she was waffling. Granted, I understand why, but like, for me, like, you can't choose one or the other, or both, I mean.
As someone who's had their world imploded a few times, I kind of understand the frenetic energy of flinging yourself wildly from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Right. Yeah, I mean, as I said,
maybe I understand her motivation a little bit more, but yes. Okay. All right, you guys. There it is. 5 through 8. We are moving into like the crux of what is the story. We are going to learn so much in the next 4 episodes. I can't wait to discuss it. Again, thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you're listening to us or watching us, give us a like, give us a follow so you can follow this entire rewatch. If you're doing your own rewatch, drop your comments in there. Are you guys going to be the odd man out with me, with Cha Ji-won, or are you going to join Carol, MICHAELA, and Caitlin and being like, yeah, she's bad. All right, you guys, until next time, let's get a quick wrap up from our 3 K-drama BFFs. Carol, why don't you give us where everyone can find you if they want to follow your K-drama musings?
Thank you so much for having me. I had fun on this episode, and you can find me on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok as KDramasMusings, and I will see you on the internet somewhere.
Yes, so you can find me at the Kpopcast on all the things. We also have a Slack channel called at the Kpopcast. You can find that in the description of every episode. And specifically, if you're not done just bashing on Cha Ji-won's character, I recommend you guys check out our episode about the show Good, Evil, and the Law in K-dramas, where we get into this, as well as the drama Attorney Woo.
And Caitlin.
I'm No Sleep for Dramas on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, basically anywhere. I also have a blog. You'll find that will be my name on the blog as well. So
excellent. And you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me when we record these. It's so much fun. I love debating. I love chatting about it. And this is one of my favorite dramas. So I love just being able to talk about it every week for 4 episodes at a time. And I can't wait to hang out with you guys all again next time. Bye.
Bye.
I